Okay, this video comes with a bit of an introduction. I'm going to make a series of videos to show how I'm teaching myself C++. Been doing it, learning over the last 18 months since I retired. I wanted a hobby when I retired, and I found that C++ has turned out to be a great hobby. The idea is to try to show that older people can actually learn a programming language like C++. The good thing about it is you can spend an hour a day doing it. You can spend all day doing it, and it's quite it's really interesting. I've noticed there's a lack of beginner-friendly C++ tutorials aimed at the older learner. There's plenty of C++ tutorials out there, but most of them are aimed at younger audiences, and they go so fast. There's one chap that I've watched a load of his tutorials, the Cherno, but he's so fast at doing it, and every now and then he'll assume that you know something that, you know, if you're a beginner with absolutely no knowledge, you don't know it. So the idea of these little videos are to make it, I'm going to try and show how I learned to do C++. Nice, slow and calm sort of thing. They're aimed at somebody that's retired, that's never done programming before. I mean, anybody else that fancies watching how I've been learning C++ at a bit of a slower pace. Anyhow, so the first thing you're going to need to do when you decide you're going to do this is obviously you're going to need an IDE. So we're going to download. I'm only going to do this for Visual Studio because it's the only one I know. I know there are loads of other alternatives, and a lot of people say, oh, there's better alternatives, but for me, C++ done in Visual Studio, download the community one. It's free. I think you have to have a Microsoft account to activate it, but apart from that, it's really easy to set up. You pretty much say yes to everything. It takes a while to download, but you pretty much say yes to everything. The only thing you've really got to think about is when you'll come to this page when you're going through the setup, and you do need to select the desktop development with C++. Put a little checkbox in there, and then click the install whilst download, and it'll just carry on doing it. You do need that, otherwise you won't have the means to do C++ in it. Anyhow, so once you've done that, you'll be presented with an icon on your toolbar. Not this one. We don't want this one. Let's get rid of that because that's another project I've been working on. Simply click on the icon on the toolbar. We're going to create a new project, and it'll do a few bits and pieces, sorting itself out. We want an empty project. We don't want anything fancy, so we just select an empty project. Next, give it a project name. I don't know, what we're going to call it. My project. My project. We're going to stick it in. I've created a folder on the desktop called this. So simply select that. Select. Place the solution and project in the same directory. I don't know whether that's how professionals do it. That's how I always do it. That way I know where it is. And click create. Takes a few seconds to go, and then you'll be presented with this screen. In this screen, what we need to do then, what I always do, is select the project, and then click show all files, because these things aren't really folders, they're things called filters. And I find it better to select all folders and then add a new folder, and this is actually a folder that will appear on the desktop, so you can what name to it. I'm going to call that source, and in there we are going to add a file, so it's add new item, and then in here we're simply going to call this main.cpp and add. You can call that first file whatever you like. You can call it app, or however you like to do it. You can call that pretty much whatever you like. Then we're going to need to include a file at the top of this page, and we're going to include a file called IOStream. That one there, and then from there we are going to go down that line, and then we're going to do int main like so, and it's going to come up. Yours might not come up like that. This is because I'm logged into GitHub, so GitHub does, we'll discuss GitHub later on in the process. Int main is the entry point to the program. We have to have an int main in a C++ program, and this leads, everything starts here. So the program will come here to look for this before it starts, and then this line of code is simply std cout, which means we're going to print out hello world, and then std end line, which means it's going to wrap round to a new line if we had another line of if we were trying to print something else underneath it, and return 0. You can actually do it without the return 0 if you want to, but it's come up with the return 0, so we'll leave it there. If we click the save it, you don't technically need to save it, because when you click this button it auto saves. So click the button, it'll take a few minutes to build it and put it all together, especially for the first time. It gets faster after you've done it. When you run it once, the next time round it'll run it much faster, and hopefully everything's all set up okay. We should get a hello world appear up here, and there we go, hello world. And then this is just some basic console stuff that comes up with it. And there you go. You've just written your first bit of C++ code. And I can honestly say it gets much more interesting from here on. You can do, there's lots of things you can do. If you are slightly older and your eyes aren't quite so good, you can make it bigger on there to make your text bigger. If we open this, you can actually see your first file in there. This is the main CPP file. And like I say, the idea of this series I'm going to try to make is just to show how easy it is to make C++ a really interesting hobby. And apparently it's really good if you're getting you are a bit of a senior. It's really good for your brain, because it's very infectious. Once you start to do it, you really want to try to do the next thing. And we can make some really interesting projects doing this. Anyhow, this was just the first one to sort of introduce it and give you a rough idea how to set up. There's plenty of YouTube videos that can show you far more in depth about how to set up C++ and any other IDE you want to use if you don't want to use the Microsoft one. So if you want to do it and follow along, it doesn't matter what IDE you're using, it'll pretty much be the same for all of them. Anyhow, that's enough waffling for this first video. Keep an eye out, because I'm hoping there's going to be a whole series of these going right through all the C++ that I've learned up to date. Anyhow, thanks for watching if you did.